I'm going to call this one the prerequisite to movement, because you have to get your body in the right placement, within the gravity field, within the balance of the body and everything else, so that your movement from place to place can happen easily. So you have to get your center of gravity set. And the best way to do that is to start by going in and feeling where you are standing, and what you're feeling in the body where the weight is placed. So I find it best to start really at the top of the head. Some people start at the bottom and work up, but I find it easier to start at the top. And where you want to go is at the very base of the skull, which is, there, and you want to think of lifting that part upward, like you're lifting your head up, and then it's the occiput part is coming back, so that your chin is level with the floor and your eyes are gazed forward, so that you don't have to look up with your eyes or down with your eyes, but that everything is there. Your head is up, and then when you're holding, and it's a very subtle lift, you're not really going to see it lift, it's a subtle lift deep inside the muscle. You just feel that little stretch in the neck, and then you can feel the shoulders relaxing down, and they're just placed there, and they're able to move easier because you're holding it. Your neck is being held by that position of the neck. You're not holding your head with your shoulders, which doesn't work anyway, but people do that all the time, including me. When I get tired, I do that. So then the shoulders can begin to swing easier and move because I'm being held here, up and back. It also keeps the spine nice and straight. Then as you move into the torso, you want to feel that the lungs, they're air. Your lungs are air. So you're floating in air, you're air floating in air, and you should be just floating up from the waist up. You should feel very floaty and light. There's not any weight bearing up in the above the waist part. And sometimes when we start to do this, we're really kind of trying to weight bear, because we're trying to hold our head up like this, and then we're getting tension everywhere, and then we're throwing ourselves all crazy. And so we have to start to think that way. The thing is that you're going to have to think about it like when you're in the grocery store line, because you're going to follow the lines of least resistance, and gravity will pull you into the areas that are weak in your body. So you're going to have to think about it and get in tune with your body and be able to hold that head up. And pretty soon sitting and everything becomes much easier. So then as we move down, we're going to understand how the pelvis, it's like a bowl, and you want that bowl not to spill when you move any direction. You want it to be able to be very steady. So that's going to take the spine continuing down to the sacrum, the little sacrum part. This is all part of the cranial system as well. But the sacrum is going to be there if it's mobile. You get your hips in alignment, and you don't throw your hips back, but you tuck them under, so it feels like your stomach is hollowing out. You're not sucking yourself in, you're pulling the hip, the back, lengthening the back, hollowing the stomach, and that's a more natural thing. So that then is going to line up the lower part of the spine, and it's going to give you range of motion with your hips. Then the hips are ball and socket joints, so they want to be moving in all sorts of directions, and they can do that only when you're going to be supporting it with the abdominal group, because that's what has to hold as you lift one off your balance. If you're going to have one leg on balance, you've got to have more of a holding thing there. The other thing about the hips that's important is when you do move your legs upward, or you're moving like up a stair or something like that, you want to continue to hold through the IT band up into the hip, and hold with the abdomen. You're still holding, pulling up, but it's not really holding because it comes to get more natural. So I'm just using kind of harsh terms right now. But when you go up the stairs, a lot of times what happens is you'll notice people will lift their leg, but they'll collapse into the hip. So they'll lift up and they'll collapse. Well, that's going to wear out the hip, so you want to keep pulling up. So when you're going up the stairs, you're just moving the hip joint. You're sinking into the hip this way, going up the stairs. You're going to wear out your hips. This is, I'm just convinced that knee replacements and hip replacements, although there is some other nutritional things of understanding that need to go along with it, but a lot of it is alignment as well that is wearing out the joint. And then, so the knees need to be underneath the hips. The knees, when they bend, they are going to be over the toes. Now, there's sometimes when people want to kind of move their legs out, but they're not moving their feet, they're going to ruin their knees by doing that sort of a movement, opening and closing. So you want to stay straight on that. If you do want your foot to turn out, you've got to take it from the hip. So you've got to turn the hip out and then bend the knee, and it will be still over the toe. And that's another very important thing to consider when you're doing movement. So this is like the basics to get there. Then we're going to travel down to the feet, and the feet, the weight that you should feel on the feet, there's two different ways. When you're more resting, you'll lean back into the heel a little bit more. So you're going to feel like you're back into the heel with the other part of the weight being like on each side of the ball of the foot. When you're going to be in motion, you want to take the weight a little bit more forward. And so the forward movement gives you the ability to move easier because you don't have to come forward. You're already forward, so you have less weight on your heel and more weight on either side of the ball of the foot there. You'll have weight, and it's evenly distributed. It's kind of like a little triangle, so it's evenly distributed. And when you get really strong feet, your feet should be, you should walk barefoot as much as possible, and if possible on even ground, because then you get stronger feet that way. When they're always stuck in shoes, they get kind of stiff. They're kind of weak then, and sometimes they hurt. But then when you're getting, if you want to develop even more, then you can move up to the toes, and when you're coming up to the toes, then you have to develop the ankle to pull inward because you have to stay over that toe. Then the balance can come when you're on that balance and you have everything lined up. Then movement becomes very, very easy. Even though I'm having to kind of work that, I'm not really having to hold too tightly because I've got control because of the upper positioning of the body. Just pay attention to all of that. Now, let's just say you have a sport that you're playing, or you like to run, or you like to bicycle, or you like to dance and move. Think about where your body is when you do it. You're going to find out that a lot of times you're in these positions and you're not in alignment, and I guarantee you're going to wear parts out and you're going to have pain and you're going to have some problems if you don't take care of that alignment. I will say one more thing about the subtlety of the anatomy, and that's what I've learned as being trained through pretty much my whole life into a dance mode. But after I got into the training of cranial sacral therapy, I realized that having that dural tube more aligned lined me up in better ways. I was able to move with much more ease. It was much easier to move because I wasn't fighting myself. Plus, I was developing, then again, I was redeveloping myself on a better line of resistance, better lines, and I found that things really changed a lot of pain went away. Considering the age that I am and how much I've used my knees, how much I've used my feet, how much I've done in movement, I don't really have a lot of pain considering my peers. So I can honestly say that I'm preaching what I've been practicing, and it works. And if you can get this far, and you'll be seeing, as we go on with this, you'll be seeing just how much we can do as we grow old. We don't have to really grow old. That's a story that they tell us. But it's up to you to make the choice as to how you want to take care of yourself and how you feel about yourself. Once again, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed this. See you later.